Evans Willie, welcome to the Grind Diaries podcast.
The hardship is been a massive part of my success. That's why I say it's been instrumental to get me to where I am, because of it was so hard starting it that everything else I do in my life is easy compared to what I did, starting my life. When I came to this country, if you told me I'll be a property investor, property millionaire, and I'll be a coach to people, and I would tell you to jog on, mate. I never planned this, right? But you see, there's nothing more powerful than a single mom. You see, a single mom, I've got a lot of respect for them. You know why? Because they got no days off. Every single day they have to find a way to put food on the table. And my mom was a typical example of that. And I think a lot of people, the reason why they're not successful is probably mainly because of that. They're afraid to fail. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's so true. Failure is a massive power of success. If you don't fail, you're not going to learn anything. So the reality of it is, anybody who really wants anything bad enough, they'll find a way. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
You're the first person that I've had on here that's kind of like solely kind of property development and investment, sorry. So I'm really interested to kind of get into how that works. It's something that I'm quite interested in. But I think the main thing for me was, hearing about the story of you and kind of how you went from sort of nothing to, being really successful in that field. So really looking forward to kind of digging into all of that. Do you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and about what it is you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, my name is Evans Willie. I'm born, bred and raised in the Caribbean in a small, lovely island called St Lucia.
Oh, lovely.
I spent majority of my years there. I had my first ever holiday at the age of 16. And that wasn't a holiday. It was, I got flown away with the St Lucia football team. So I played football for the Caribbean, for my country.
Wow.
And I was very fortunate, because if I didn't have that trip, I probably would still be in St Lucia. Because obviously when I flew over to play football, I actually saw I saw life. I came out of a box, I saw life, and then I played again. So I went to Dominica. From there, what happened is a lot of my family, and that happens quite normally in the Caribbean, a lot of families migrate from St. Lucia to better countries, i.e. Canada, i.e. the USA, i.e. England, right? So I saw loads of people obviously doing that. And I really got intrigued as to why they were doing that. And I realized the reason why, when I got a little bit older, I realized the reason why is they left for a better chance in life, better opportunities. So very, 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 very young. All right, I think when I was 13, I was nailed on that this is what I'm going to do. So when I was at school, I didn't really care. I was a naturally smart person at school. I passed all my tests, but I never excelled because I never put energy on it, because I already knew that I'm gonna leave St Lucia and go abroad. I had my eyes set on England because I have my brother who was here already. So at the age of 16, I played football. I didn't take football extremely serious. However, I was very good at football. So I played for the St Lucia junior team at age 16. I played for the under 21s at age 16. Very few 16-year-olds actually did that.
Yeah.
I got scouted for the senior team, but I didn't want to do it because I was just taking loads of bench. So I never really put energy on the actual senior team. But football obviously led me to travel not only within the Caribbean, and I went through loads of different Caribbean islands representing the country in football, and also track and field. But football also took me internationally. So the first time I came to the UK was actually to do a few trials. So I had a few trials for a few semi-pro teams in London, out of London, near Rugby. And I spent 6 months here. I think I was 17 years old at the time. And what happened, that was a massive eye-opener, because I actually saw that it's completely different to the Caribbean. I genuinely saw that whatever I want to do in this country, there's an opportunity for me to do it. So I really got hooked, and I was completely sold. I had to go back to St Lucia. I just could not see St Lucia the same way again. So when I got back after, I was 18. I think I spent my 18th birthday in the UK. So when I went back to St Lucia, what happened is I was just sold out and trying to find a way to come back to the UK. Wow. And it's a crazy story. I mean, there's multiple ways, obviously, in which I obviously tried. When I came in the first time, I met a girl who became my girlfriend, and She wanted to get married to me and we're going to live happily ever after. And the second time she sent me a ticket to come over here. When I came over here, we were meant to be living happily ever after, but I found out that she was seeing someone in my absence from when I was there the first time to the last time, and that person was still in her life. In fact, so much so that when I was there one day, she left to go see that person. And I called her, and he ended up answering the phone, and I had a convo with him, and he took the phone, and when she went, he called me, gave me the full backstory, crushed my dreams, crushed my goals of being in this happily ever after. 1 week later, I was back in St Lucia.
No way.
Back to square one. But I was still sold out on coming to this country. So I thought, how can I find another way? And I went to work on a cruise ship. I was a waiter, I was a bar staff working on a cruise ship, getting paid peanuts. But again, exposure. I put energy on achieving this goal. And, I found, somebody on the cruise ship who's not English, but European, who we connected with. We migrated to the UK together. We had my first son, Jaden. And that's how I initially got into this country. And, at the time, I still was putting energy on football, but then I kept getting ankle injuries. So that football career, I really loved it. That was my passion. But I realized it could not be my career because of injuries, and I was 21, 22 at the time. So it's a little bit difficult to start at that age in the UK. So I was just looking for different ways, different opportunities, different things to become successful. And I came here in 2013. From 2013, I came here legally with that person, well, my kid. So 2013 to 2020, I was just grinding. I like the word grind. And I was just searching for opportunities to become successful. And believe you me when I say I genuinely tried and looked for everything under the sun. If there's anything I heard, how, where, when, I was on it. Drop shipping, MLM, trading, everything. And some of them obviously I made a little bit of money, but it was nothing sustainable. Nothing actually worked the way I wanted it to work. And what happened was I was working in finance, right? Selling finance in 2020. Then lockdown happened. My boss could have easily just kept me on furlough, but he decided to get rid of me, but still claimed the furlough for me. So he claimed the furlough, kept the money. Really crushed me because I found out, because one of my friends was one of the managers, so he gave me the insights. But it was a blessing in disguise because I was just sold out to find a way. Because now 7 years I'm in the country, I look back at the numbers, I've got nothing to show, I've got nothing for myself, and the only thing that was kept circling around was property. And I saw a few YouTube videos on property, so I really started to binge YouTube videos during the lockdown period, to the point I got completely sold out that that's my next step. I applied for a job working as an estate agency because I didn't really want to invest in myself. That's one of my biggest broke things, right? Mentalities. I didn't want to invest in myself, so I got this job working as an estate agency, and for 3 months I didn't really learn anything. So I'm like, man, I know that's what I'm meant to be doing. I've tried this route of getting a job. It doesn't really work. The next best thing I had to do was to invest in myself and obviously get trained, which is obviously what I did. And that was sort of like, September, October 2020. And by December 2020, I really paid for it and I really went all in. I always say when you pay for things, you pay attention.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I did. The minute I paid and I got the A to Z, the minute everything clicked in. And by the end of 2020, I was completely financially free. I had about 3-4 rent-to-rent properties, which I'll get into a little bit later on. That was making me around between £2,000 to £3,000, which means I never had to go to a job and get £2,000 to £3,000 because I was getting it recurringly. And when I was like, wow, how was I able to do this so quickly? I started putting energy on it, and I went from there. I built up to 10 properties that I was renting out, which was doing very, very well. And then I learned about a different property strategy where you can find property deals, and rather than take them on yourself, you can pass them on to busy people who's got money, and they'll pay me a referral fee. That's called property deal sourcing. And I put a lot of energy on that for 2 years. I sold over 200 property deals. Average deal is around £3,000. That money completely changed my life around. I moved to Canary Wharf, bought a Range Rover. Life was great. But then I was like, this is not solid. What's solid is actually owning property. So I started in the last year and a half or 2 years, I started to obviously buy properties, but I didn't buy it, a lot of them using my own money. I raised the money from people who's got savings, give them a return, 5, 10, sometimes 15% return on whatever they give to me. pay them back in a few months. But I used that money to buy rundown houses, fix them up, and then got a mortgage on it and pay back the investors and kept the house. And I started off with no houses. Now I own 9 houses. But in the last 2 years, while I've been doing this, a lot of people have been asking me, Evans, how do you do it? So I started, I built a property trading company, and I started getting success students after success students. And it's gone from having, 1 student I'm currently mentoring to now 85 students. That's ongoing. So it's completely blown up. I do events regularly. In fact, in the next 2 days, I've got an event with a room of about 60 students, who's obviously all paid to be there. So yeah, in the last few years, I went from 0 to nothing. I've achieved a lot of my goals. Even one of my biggest goals that I've been wanting to do for the last 2 years is buy myself a Lamborghini. I was able to do that 2 months ago.
Wow.
Because of the property and what it's done for me. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. For 11 years I've been in this country. I feel like the first 7 years was just an autopilot. I was just existing. But the last 4 or 5 years, I've been able to live in this country, should I say.
Yeah, that is incredible. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to unpick there. But I think it really hits home when you say, like, the last 4 years of focus has basically turned your life around. Because 4 years is not a long time, right?
Correct.
I can look back 4 years ago and think, like, that feels like yesterday. And I think that one of the biggest barriers to people actually kind of making the first move is the kind of long-term vision of, it's going to take me 10 years, so I don't need to start it right now. I can just sit on this for a little while, and I can just like let it rattle around in my head. I can get it perfect. I can build the perfect plan, and then I'll execute it maybe next year. Whereas I'm guessing from your perspective, you were just like, okay, I want to do this. I need to go and do it. Like, I just need to get that first kind of step. So that's really cool. Really interesting story about St Lucia as well, because like I've never been to the Caribbean, but a lot of people talk very highly of places like St Lucia and how exotic destination it is. So like, I guess, is it as exotic as we all kind of think it is? And I guess from your perspective, you didn't leave to come to London for the scenery, but more for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, exotic is subjective. The reason why I say subjective is the same. Like every country has got phenomenal parts, and every country has got very rough parts.
True.
St Lucia is obviously more portrayed with the exotic parts because it's a lovely island, but there are certain parts that is a bit rough. There are some parts that's got a lot of poverty. And luckily for me, fast forward now, I mean, at the time, I wasn't saying luckily, I was actually born in the poverty part. I was born in the really rough part. So I wasn't spoiled, and I went through a lot of hardship in my life. And I think the hardship is been a massive part of my success. You asked that, did I come over here for the scenery? Well, depends. I always say a little bit of greenery changes the scenery, right? So I definitely came over to this country for the greenery. I definitely came for the financial, injections that this country could give to the average person who obviously works very, very hard. So that's the reason why I came. But in regards to the actual exotic scenery, it's rare to find something like St Lucia. Hence the reason why I go there twice. I went there 3 times in the last 12 months. But it's a phenomenal island overall, should I say.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Somewhere I'd definitely like to visit eventually. And I've got friends that are from other Caribbean islands that sort of, paint similar stories of like beautiful parts of the, of a tiny island, but then other parts of it, aren't so beautiful.
For sure.
What is we talked a lot about, your journey and how you kind of got there, but what do you think is your kind of definition of success?
My definition of success is just being able to live, life on my terms, being able to do what I want to do without any limitations, with time, can't do this because I have to go to work, can't do this, without any limitations with finances, I can't buy this one because it's, that's one part of it, and what that's obviously helped me to do is to have my peers, I've got 2 boys, they both look up to me. I think that is a massive part of success because, I realize kids don't do what you tell them to do. They do what they see you do, right? Mm. And That was my initial thought process of success. And when I actually got that, that was great, but I still felt a bit empty until I started to help others, and the gratitude of me helping them and how they feel great that Evans have turned my life around. That was completely different. That's something I never actually experienced and never planned for. But when it happened, it was a feeling that was unique. And that's why I put a lot of energy on it. So I think, number one, yes, having the freedom to do, things without any time or finance constraints, but also to impact other people and to be able to genuinely help and change other people's life. I think that's my overall definition of success.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I guess you kind of pointed out the kind of freedom element of not having to be certain places at certain times, and not being restricted by money in that kind of sense. How far do you think you're there yet, or do you think there's further for you to go?
I mean, there's obviously always forward to go. I think as an entrepreneur, you never get comfortable. You always want more. But I don't have any restrictions, time wise, obviously, finances. I travel about 5 times a year. So I think I'm where I planned to be when I got started. I have surpassed it. But now I've got that level. I'm thinking like, wait a minute, there's different levels. First class is great, but I know people who fly private. And I'm thinking like, that's a completely different level, right?
Yeah.
So, I wanted a Lamborghini, but I know people who have got Rolls Royces, and it's different levels. I think like when you get to another level, and when I mean, I am at a very good level, but I'm not saying that I am not happy with my level. I'm very grateful, and I'll be forever grateful. But because I know I've probably exerted less than 5% of my capability, I know there's more levels to obviously unlock. So I'm very grateful with where I am, but I wouldn't say I'm contented because I know there's more to give.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And the reason I asked that question is because, and I've been really guilty of this in the past, thinking of my success as a destination, as in, I'll be really happy when I get there, knowing full well that I won't be. I'll be the same as you. Like, I'll be pleased that I've achieved that goal, but then there'll be something else that I want to go for. So I guess it's like thinking of success as a journey rather than a kind of end point.
Absolutely.
There's always the danger, I guess, of achieving something that you've set out to achieve and then not having that next step. I always feel like that's a danger, because then you're almost kind of left in limbo a little bit. But yeah, no, it's really, really interesting about your kind of perspective. Obviously, I see a lot of people talking about their kind of definition of success. I really love yours of having that kind of freedom and just kind of being your own boss. And I think it's definitely something that I aspire to be as well. So that's really cool. I'm really interested to kind of dig a little bit deeper into your kind of backstory, if you don't mind. So talking about life in St Lucia, and how those things that you said earlier. You said that being brought up in that kind of poverty definitely contributed to where you've got to now. So I'd be really interested to kind of dig into that and go a little bit deeper, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, the reason why I say that is because some people obviously make success or building a successful business, should I say, because success is subjective. Building a successful business seem like it's very easy. I think I'm somebody who's just very blunt, and I don't, say things just for people to feel like, oh, okay. I don't say it as I genuinely feel. Building, a successful business, a successful property business, and now a successful property coaching business. It's extremely hard. It's a lot of hard work. When I say hard, not physically hard, but it's a lot of mentally hard. Especially the business that I'm in, where I'm obviously the property business, not so much is, as long as you get the hang of it, you get the knowledge, you can obviously run the autopilot. But, the property coaching business, where I'm coaching, learn tens and tens of students, it's a lot of hard work, because I've got, staff to obviously oversee and make sure they keep into the levels that I want them to obviously keep, and keep resharing the vision so they can keep, being motivated. But also as well is that having to coach loads of different students from different walks of life with different personality types, and having to inspire them and to re-instill belief in them. It's very, very difficult, managing my builders, right. So I would say that the reason why I would say that my upbringing has dramatically helped with getting to where I am right now is because I think things are hard or things are easy depends on whether they have a point of reference, whether you can compare it to something. Because something might be very hard to you, but when you compare it to something else, it's not that hard. And I think because I had a really tough start, I'm talking about some of the things I had to do to survive, and I mean, multiple different things. At the age by the age of 16, I had probably about over 15 different jobs already, because my mom was a single mom and she was the mom and she was the dad. For a majority of my life, my dad actually passed away when I was 16 as well. So it was very, very tough. My dad actually never even lived in my house. He was always a visiting household. So my mom she had 4 boys, and she's been a catalyst to me being the person I am today, because I was a mama's boy. But that was brilliant because I was always with her. And when I was with her, 1 minute she's dragging me to someone's house to clean. Then she's dragging me to someone's funeral. Someone just passed away because she was a florist making flowers. And then the next minute she's obviously at night time. We have some random kid in our house because she's a nanny. So she was a jack of all trades, master of none. But the entrepreneurial, aspect, which she doesn't know is entrepreneurial because they just do whatever it takes to make money, is something that was instilled in me indirectly, from St Lucia. So that's one thing. But when I started to work, I did all kind of jobs, washing cars, cutting hairs. I think one of the most toughest jobs I had was I was a roofer, right? And obviously we have to be climbing roofs. We're talking about 40, 50 feet, some very high roofs. But the thing about it is, we have to climb those roofs with just a ladder and someone holding the ladder at the bottom. There's no scaffolding, there's no harness or anything like that. But the danger is one part of it. It's probably not so much the biggest part. St Lucia is obviously it's an island. So we're talking about 30, 40, 50 degrees, sometimes natural bushfires. And the higher up that you are, the nearer you are to the sun. And the roofing that we were laying down was metal roofing. So I want you to just walk with me for a minute. We very up in the sky, and we laying down metal roof on the roof. And so when the sun hits the metal, back onto your face, right? Oh, so if I show you pictures of me when I was in St Lucia, you probably wouldn't even know it's the same person, because I was completely bleak. I wouldn't say black is one level, bleak is really, really, really dark, really dark. So I was completely bleak because of obviously being in there. And the worst thing is, we had no insurance, and I was only getting paid on average about $80, sometimes at best $100 a day. And if you convert that to pounds, that's about £30. Do you know what I mean? And that wasn't a full-time job. We were only working ad hoc. When there's a job, we work. When there's not a job, we don't work. So it's rare that we have a whole month of consistent pay. So I think some of the things I've had to do, working construction, some of the things I've had to do to obviously just make ends meet in St Lucia was hard at the time. But obviously now I'm very grateful that I did it, because now with what I have to do, which is obviously probably do some content in regards to like the market of my business, or speak to an investor, go to a meeting, speak to a landlord, put the two together. I basically do deals for a living, to make life-changing amounts of money. For the average person, it's difficult, but I'm thinking like, if that doesn't compare to climbing roofs and laying metal on it. So I think that's why I say it's been instrumental to get me to where I am, because of it was so hard starting it that everything else I do in my life is easy compared to what I did, starting my life.
It's really interesting. And I think just listening to you talk about your mum, I can almost like see the similarities in your kind of work ethic. You mentioned before about, trying different things, and you were just like hell-bent on being successful in whatever area that may be, and you went out and you tried various different things. And it feels like, your mum did a similar thing with the different roles and the different things that she did. Do you think do you think you've learned from that? Like, you've learned that you don't have to be tied to one thing. There's a range of different things you can try out and just keep kind of almost like a trial and error type.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, when I came to this country, if you told me I'll be a property investor, property millionaire, and I'll be a coach to people, and I would tell you to jog on, mate. I never planned this, right? But you see, exactly what you just said. You see, my mom, you see, there's nothing more powerful than a single mom. You see, a single mom, I've got a lot of respect for them. You know why? Because they got no days off. Every single day they have to find a way to put food on the table. And my mom was a typical example of that. You know, she was just doing whatever she had to do because she had to feed her four boys, right? And me being around all of this, I saw this. There was nothing that was too much for her to do. She has to do it, right? And I think when I came to this country, I said, you know what it is? I am going to go back to St Lucia and change her life for her and help her build a big house for her and retire. I think I had the same mentality that I'm just going to do whatever I have to do up until I get to my goal. I think when you commit to something, when you start, the in-between becomes very easy. And I was just committed to becoming successful. So I just came here and I'm like, just show me what to do. You know, I was just like, whatever, if it works, brilliant. If it doesn't work, I'll get the lesson from it and I'll move on. And I think that's what's obviously got me there. You know, I was willing to just fail as many times as possible. And I think a lot of people, the reason why you're not successful is probably mainly because of that. They're afraid to fail. They're afraid to, you know, get lessons. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's so true. You know, failure is a massive part of success. If you don't fail, you're not going to learn anything. You know, I have my students who, some of them come in and they get results within the first month. You know, I had a student who in his first month got 4 properties, right? He's been able to leave his job in the first month, right? I tell him, great, that's brilliant. His name is Leopold from Birmingham. That's brilliant. But this is a business. At some point, you're going to have to face hardship. If you haven't faced it at the beginning, it's going to come in the middle or in the end, but just be prepared for it. So I think a lot of people are afraid of that, but that's where the maturity comes. That's where the test is. You know, God is very giving. He's willing to give you anything that you really ask him for. But before he gives it to you, there's a test. And the test is a hardship. And if you can go through the hardship, then you're definitely worthy of the prize at the end.
Yeah, so true. And, you know, definitely, definitely something that I've encountered myself. And I think you're absolutely bang on with the, you know, why do people not go and fulfill their dreams? I can almost guarantee that 9 out of 10 are just too scared. They're too scared of failing.
For sure.
What if this doesn't work? Or they do what I did, and you kind of talk yourself out of it before you've even made the first step.
For sure.
You know, I've done that a lot. In my it nearly happened with this podcast, you know, and it wasn't for the fact that the first guy that I asked to come on, a really good friend of mine, really influential guy, just kept saying to me, just book the studio. Like, what have you got to lose? Just book the studio and let's get it done. And I think, like, sometimes I feel like if I hadn't have had that little kick up the arse, I might not have started this. And this journey for me has been incredible. I meet some amazing people, some super inspirational people, and I can't think of what my life would be like without it. But the point is like, I had overcomplicated this journey so much that I almost kind of talked myself out of it. What if nobody wants to come on? What if nobody listens to it? What happens when this happens? It's going to cost me money. What, you know? And man, just take the first step. And I think you hit the nail on the head there with the kind of the failure piece. Like, the lessons that you learn from failure are so valuable that people need to start seeing failure as like part of success rather than like it being like a problem, you know. So I feel like that's kind of where you've had a superpower almost, because it feels like you've seen that very early on and you've been like, I know I'm going to fail, but I'm just going to embrace it and crack on.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, there's massive benefit. We've been the underdog, or there's massive benefit starting from zero. You know, a lot of people think it's a sentence when you start from zero. A lot of people think it's like you way behind the 8 ball when you start at level 0. A lot of people think like you're probably going to play a football match and you start in from halftime but you're losing 3-0. A lot of people have got that misconception that that's what being broke or being starting from nothing is. For me, I think it's a massive superpower when you start from nothing. And the reason why I say that is because if you really think about it, you don't have anything to lose. So imagine if someone told you that you got nothing to lose, whatever actions you take moving forward in your life, you can't fail. How many more chances would you take in life? You would take every chance because you know you can't fail, right? And I think that's the benefit when you start from zero, because you can't get any worse than where you are. You can't get any worse than where you are. So you might as well just literally just do everything that you can do, because if you change nothing, you'll be at level 0. But if you change something, there's a strong possibility that something's going to change, and you can at least go from level 0 to level 1. So I think for me, that's why I understood from the get-go. And I adopted that I don't care mentality. And I think when you get somewhere in life where you just don't care about anything, you are so powerful. Because now all of a sudden, you haven't got to worry about wearing this designer top or this cap or this jewelry, because if you don't, your friends won't accept you. Or when you just don't care, I think life is just great. I think life is great. I think because I've been that way for a long time in my life, I would say for at least the last decade, it's really helped me to just take more opportunities, because I just don't care if it doesn't work. I know if it doesn't work, I definitely will learn something from it. I definitely will meet someone on that journey who's going to lead me on to the next path. This is my friend Kevin, for example. I met Kevin on a previous venture. I knew Kevin before property. I met Kevin at something called MLM, network marketing, right? And that didn't work. That failed horribly, right? However, there's loads of personal development that came out of this. Personal development changed my life around, right? But number 2, I met incredible people. One is obviously Kevin, for example. I met him there, and now he's obviously my business partner, helping me build this business. So even in a failure, when things fail very badly, and I quit my job to do this business of MLM. I used to work at Jaguar Land Rover. It's a crazy story, right? I used to work at Jaguar Land Rover. I was driving a brand new Range Rover as a company car. I was one of the top salespeople there in the country, wearing a suit every single day. I quit this job to do MLM and do the network marketing. Everybody thought I was crazy. And I was crazy because it didn't really work. It didn't work. It worked so badly that, I couldn't obviously even keep up with my mortgage payments. I defaulted a couple of times, right? Crazy. My partner I had at the time, I'm not saying this because of MLM, we broke up, but we broke up around the same time because finances wasn't great. You know what I mean? I was a little bit stressed. We broke up at that same time, right? But some good came out of it. I met Kevin. I met the mother of my son now. I learned about personal development, and that's helped me as well. So even when you fail and something, there's an L. The L is not a loss. The L is a lesson.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's quite interesting as well what you said about not caring. Because going back to your original conversation about success, and you said, that kind of freedom. I guess that's an element of freedom as well, isn't it? Not caring what people think.
For sure.
Because
For sure.
that gives you the ultimate freedom, right?
It gives you the ultimate freedom, 100%. Because now all of a sudden, the thing is, you see, this is just so powerful, and I think I see a lot of people who are they say they're free, but you're not really free. They're in some shackles because they can't do certain things because they want to please certain people. I meet a lot of my students who come into me and tell me they want to do property, but they can't because they have to go to university. I had one of my students from Cardiff, his name is Josh, right? When I met him, he was a 20-year-old student at university. He really hated university. He didn't really want to do it. But he really wanted to make his mom proud, and she really wanted him to do university. So he had a very open conversation with me, like, I really want to leave university, but I can't leave because I've got to make my mom proud of me, right? So he thinks by doing university, he'll make her proud. But it's like, what? I see what you do, Evans. I want your lifestyle. I want to do property. And that was about 10 months ago. I took him under my wing. He's obviously one of my students, invested in himself. And, fast forward 10 months, this 20-year-old student is now 21. He's got 5 properties that he controls. And he's bought 3 properties already within the 10 months.
Jeez.
Last month he made over £6,000. and he's now quit university, right? But the reality of it is, the reason why I'm saying that, he was in a bit of a shackle, so he had to go to university because he had to make her proud, right? So the reality of it is, a lot of people are like that, especially within the African, Caribbean ethnicity in the UK. A lot of them have to go to university. They have to get certain jobs. They have to get married by certain ages. Sometimes they don't even want to do it, but they feel like if they don't do it, they won't please their mom. Now, I've been pleasing people my whole life. And even when you please somebody, you've still lost. Because ultimately, you please everybody. And the one person you haven't pleased is yourself.
Yeah.
And I think you're the one person that you can't run away from. You're the one person that you can't lie to. You're the one person that you can't hide things from. So if there's one person that you want to please above everybody, it has to be yourself. Because even if you please your mom, your dad, even your husband or your kids, and you're not happy, it's never really going to work. And I think when you make yourself happy, what happens is that radiates off other people. So I think if you just turn the way that you look at things and say, you know what it is, forget pleasing you. Let me please me first. And I guarantee if you please you and you become happy, you'll be able to make people around you, more people around you happy than trying to please them and make them happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
I've seen so many successful people become a victim of social pressures, as in, like, they've built this kind of persona of somebody that's doing really well for themselves, and they have nice things, they wear nice clothes, and then when things aren't going so well, they feel like they need to continue that on because they don't want to lose that kind of persona. And
for
it's
sure.
like, it again, like, you know, you mentioned before, like, why give a fuck what people think, you know? And I think that gives you so much power because, you know, if you don't care, like, what clothes you wear or what, you know, what others are kind of thinking, then you just put yourself into a position where you can do exactly as you say. Focus on yourself, make yourself happy, do what makes you happy. If like, you know, buying an expensive t-shirt makes you happy, then perfect, go buy the t-shirt. But like, so many people become a victim of feeling like they have to buy the t-shirt because they want everybody to know that they've got some money.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? The crazy thing is, I've been on both sides of the corner. Before I actually started to work on building a business and becoming successful, I was the other person. I was the person that in my circle, I was perceived to become successful, because I remember I was saying to you, I used to work for a company called Jaguar Land Rover. And I was what, 22, 23? And I was driving a Range Rover. You know, I bought my own house. And I was making, sometimes in some months, I make £5,000, right? So in my social circle, they were like, wow, he's so young, he's wearing a suit, he's naturally good looking. I mean, that's still the case. But, you know, his boy is on out, he's driving a Range Rover. Everybody thought, you know, like, he's successful. And I think exactly what you just said, you know, a lot of people, they got that perceived success, and what happens is you really get to them. And they end up just keeping that front on just to impress people. But I was doing that, and I was pleasing everybody around me. Everybody around me worshiping, like, he's doing so well. But I knew that I wasn't successful, because despite the fact that some months I make 5-6 grand, I was on a higher tax bracket. So what happened was 40%, sometimes 50% of my income was taxed. Then I had to pay my mortgage. Then I had to drive from Luton to London. Then I had to pay all of these bills, you know, television tax, council tax, gas, electricity, fuel, all of those things. And after paying all of the bills, there's no money left. So all of the perceived success, and some, you know, sometimes mid-month, I'm having water soup. I'm having air burgers. I'm on a diet almost every mid-month. I'm on a diet. Not because I want to be on a diet, it's just because I can't afford to buy what I want to be. So there was a lot of perceived success. And I think I did that for a few months. And after a few months, like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I genuinely felt like I was running against a treadmill. You know, and the reality of it is you can never outrun a treadmill because it's a machine that's plugged to a wall and you're just a human being. So you're going to run out of air at some point. I got to the point where I was just working, paying the bills, working, paying the bills. And I'm like, that's crazy. I did not leave St Lucia to come to the UK to get the UK dream, to be working paycheck to paycheck. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, there has to be more to that. And I knew there was more to that. Why? Because I used to work at Jaguar Land Rover. And I'm seeing individuals from all different shapes, sizes, ages, ethnicity, religions, coming to buy those cars for £100,000, £150,000. Someone are buying it outright. But even if they don't buy it outright, to be buying a Range Rover, even on finance, for £1,000 a month, you gotta be doing something right, mate.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued by what those people were doing, and I found a lot of those people told me they were doing property, whether they were doing property full time or whether they were doing property indirectly. And I was like, wait a minute, there has to be something there, right? So that's what really instilled in me, like, this is the field that I need to be in. Because I saw so many people in. I'm not saying I was better than them, but when I'm comparing them, I'm like, he can barely speak English. Like, he's an introvert. He told me he's tired of with no money. How is he got 3-4 houses? Something like that. I need to get onto this. So I think 100%. I think, when you in a field, in whatever obviously that you do, I think as long as you're open minded, you'll find opportunities. But when you are perceived to become successful, what happens is you are closed minded. And you don't see opportunities, you don't see anything, you keep passing over opportunities over and over and over again, and you end up just being boxed up. And at some point, you're going to suffocate in that box, in my opinion. So I think it's just forget the perceived success, actually work towards becoming, successful, as opposed to being, perceived to be successful.
Yeah, and I guess that comes down to, as well, like you said before, like being honest with yourself. Like I think you mentioned you can't lie to yourself, which is so true. How difficult is that, though, to kind of look yourself in the mirror and know that, okay, I'm living up to social pressures here and I'm not happy.
Yeah,
I need to change something.
it is very difficult. It is very difficult. When I obviously left this job, Jaguar Land Rover, I knew that straight away I would lose the company car, and I would not be able to have a Range Rover. But I'll tell you what my plan was. My plan was to go back there and buy a Range Rover for myself. And after leaving that job, I think about 2 years it took me. It took me about 2 years, and I went there and buy a Range Rover, a bigger one, a better one than the one I had when I used to work there.
Brilliant.
So when I used to work, I used to have the smallest Range Rover, the Evoque.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get the one that's above it. So I wanted to get a Range Rover Vela. And I did that. I left Range Rover in 2019. And in 2021, I went there and got a brand new Range Rover. That was mine. That my boss can't tell me, why are you driving here at night? How much mileage have you done? So it was very, very difficult. But I think when you believe in yourself, you know that it's just a transition. You know there's a period of time, right? You know it's pruning season. You know that it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough for a short period of time. But I'm willing to go for that rough period of time to make this permanent, right? So I knew that when I left my job at Land Rover, I'd have to give my company car back. I know I'm going to get rid of a lot of fake friends who were just around me for clout and just to use me because I've got a Range Rover. I know I'm going to lose them. And that's exactly what happened. All the friends I used to have when I was working there, they all were not answering my calls. All of a sudden, they're all not going out on the weekend anymore. But I watch their snap and they're out. But because I haven't got the car anymore, I'm not that popular. Great. I was able to get rid of those people that was leeches from me. And through the pruning season of not having a lot, not having a company car, not making as much money, losing money actually, I gained the right people to get me onto the mission that I'm on right now. Because I believe that when you can attract people when you're not winning, those people will be around even when everything hits the fan. And it's very easy to attract people when things are great. But the minute that things stop being great, you're going to realize a lot of those people are going to be gone. So I was willing to give up the fake life that I had, go for a bit of a rough patch. Because I believed in myself, I know, you know what? I am going to build it back bigger and better.
That's crazy. I mean, it's like, I'm putting myself in your shoes a little bit here and thinking like, it's like one of the most brave things you can do, right? Because you're like, but it's the you know, it's brave, but totally the right thing to do, because you're like stepping away from this life that you've built,
Yeah.
stepping away from, you know, knowing that if I give up that car, if I give up this job, these people probably are no longer going to be around.
Yeah.
But then you're saying, you know, exactly as you said at the start, just kind of being true to yourself, because, you know, you've stepped away from a life knowing that you're going to put yourself in potential difficulty and, you know, go through some stuff that's going to be really challenging. But having the self-confidence to know, well, I don't need these people. I don't need that car. I'm seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What did the people that were close to you that kind of stuck by you, like if you had a partner at the time, like what was their perception of this? Like, how did they see it all?
The honest reality is I actually lost a lot of people around me. I would say 99.9% of the people around me at the time. Even the partner I had at the time, when I left Jaguar Land Rover, you know, we broke up through that transition period. Now, I'm not telling you it's because of that. It probably happened to just be coincidence, right? A lot of people thought I was crazy. You know, a lot of people thought I was crazy. But I think the reason why I did it is, as I said earlier on, the only person you can't lie to when you go to bed at night is yourself. And what I built up over the years is I built up self-respect. I think self-respect is so important. And what do I mean by self-respect? You see, when you've given yourself a command and you're going to do something and you've done it, the level of respect that you have for yourself is phenomenal. And there's so many things that I said I'm going to do that I did before this point. Like, for example, I said I'm going to play for my community. I did. For my school, I did. Play football for the country, I did it. You know, I said I'm going to come to the UK and pay for my holiday. For the average person to pay for the whole a flight to come to the UK, it's a lot more than the average wage per month. And I saved that. I said I was going to buy a car. In my community, people don't even have cars. At the age of 16, I bought 2 cars in my community. Right? Everybody thought like this guy's doing something illegal. I never did anything illegal. I was just a hard worker, right? And I just keep setting goals and I keep hitting it. I said I'm going to come to the UK and I'm going to obviously be in the UK legally. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to get a job for a prestige car brand. Everything I said I was going to do and I really wanted to do, I did it. So I knew that when I left this job, I said I'm going to build a successful business. I knew it was going to happen. Now, I'm not a magician. There's no way I can obviously read the future, but I think men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. The numbers has worked for me before. I said I'm going to do something, and I've successfully done it before. So I knew that me saying I'm going to do something else is going to happen. The only question was just, how long would it take? Right? And I think because I had that self-belief and that self-respect in myself, I knew that it's going to happen. You know, I was not living in the current state, but I was living in my future and in my goals. I was living in my vision and not my sight. And I think by living in my vision, every day was a happy day. When things go wrong, when a friend leaves me, when a girlfriend breaks up, I would just smile because I'm like, you know what? You will come back to me one day. You will want me again one day. And I want to reject you because I'll be a lot better than you. So a lot of things, I think it's all about perception, how you see things. You know, how when something happens to you, like, is it going to cripple you, or do you see it as like, you know what? One day you're going to see. So I think because I had that self-respect, I really, really, honestly, if everything in me believed that I would get to where I am today. And I think that's what made the transition a bit smoother.
Yeah. So, an important message there, I think. I mean, you talk about having the kind of respect for yourself, but I guess that respect for yourself is driven by the discipline that you've lived by. Because it sounds to me like you're a highly disciplined guy.
Yeah.
You say you're going to do something, you're going to do it.
For sure.
That gives you the confidence and the self-respect that you need to know, I'm going to leave Range Rover and I'm going to make something of myself because I've done it before, I can do it again.
For sure.
So I guess for somebody that's not disciplined, right? For somebody that says, I'm going to do this, but then doesn't. For somebody that says, I'm going to create this, and then they start it, but then just kind of it fades away. I guess that makes that situation really difficult
Yeah,
because they don't have the belief.
for sure.
They know, oh, I could leave here and I could go and do this, but nothing I've ever done's worked. So I think what you're describing, which is like such a cool thing, is that pretty much anything is possible with the right attitude and discipline and a bit of consistency. You know, you're going to fuck things up. You're going to, you know, it's going to go wrong. But if you just stick to the task, keep doing what you say you're going to do, you're going to get there eventually.
Yeah.
And then I guess it's like compounds that confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And then you just keep building from there. Would you kind of say that that's accurate?
Yeah, very, very accurate. And I do think most people are disciplined. See, the thing is, some people are just disciplined in different fields. For example, they might not be disciplined in business, but they're probably disciplined in going to the gym. They go to the gym every day. Or maybe they're disciplined in doing yoga or Pilates that's going to help them with their mental. Or maybe they're disciplined of eating good foods. Or maybe they're just disciplined in excelling in their job. Maybe they're disciplined in sports. I think everybody's obviously disciplined in something. And what I realized is that discipline can be channeled into something else, right? You see, one of the reasons I am where I am today, one of the reasons why I'm just, a very competitive person, especially in business, is because I was very competitive, as a kid. I used to do track and field, and I just hated to lose. So I made winning a must for me. And I started to do very well in track and field. I used to win most of the races. I played football. I had to be the best. I had to be the striker. I had to score the most goals. And I think I've used that winning, that born winner, should I say, I've used that into business. And I think same thing as discipline. Now, if there's someone watching this podcast and they're not disciplined in anything, then guess what? They can start today. They can give themselves a small command today. Write down 2 things you're going to do. I'm going to walk for 10 minutes and then just do it. And then I am going to have a bottle of water. It's very simple to do. Just something as small as this, when you do it, you get this release, you get this endorphin hit from your brain that's like, I said I'm going to do this and I've done it. And then you feel happy about yourself. And then tomorrow you can maybe just do something else. It doesn't have to be something amazing, just a small command. As long as you tell yourself you're going to do it and you actually do it, you'll feel good about yourself. And I've done that. I intentionally do that. I write down all the things I've got in my life that I'm grateful for. I write down the goals that I want. And I just write everything that I want, and I just do it. That's something I've been doing for the last 5 years. I have a blank book, and I write down everything that I have that I'm grateful for. And every single morning, I just read it. I'm grateful I've got a pair of trainers. I'm grateful I've got a car. I'm grateful I've got a house. I am going to achieve this. I just read it because I actually did a bit of research on that, and I actually realized that actually works. And what's happened over the last 5 years, with me just doing this simple exercise that anybody can do, is a lot of the things I've got on the goals list, I start to cross them off, and they start to be on the gratitude book of the things that I do have, right? Anybody can do this. This is very, very powerful, but it makes you gain a lot of self-belief in yourself and self-respect. And I think that's important to become successful, because if you don't believe that you're going to actually do something, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
You need to really believe. I think belief is step number 1. If you don't believe it, you won't do it. You're going to put it off. You're going to have excuses. But you need to believe that I genuinely going to get this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, I don't know about you, but discipline almost becomes addictive. As in, a live example, like, I started, a new regime of like trying to look after myself. I got a little bit out of shape last year, and this year I'm trying to kind of, get fitter and whatever. And like literally yesterday, I said this to my wife. It was pouring with rain, right? And I'd promised myself I'm going to go for a run Sunday. I'd planned I'm going out for a run Sunday. And I actually said to my missus, I said, oh man, I hate myself sometimes. Because I know that if I don't go out for this run, I'm going to be a moody bastard. You know what I mean? This is going to play on my mind all day. If I don't go out for this run, I'm going to really kind of like it's going to really affect me in like, in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
But, the outset is like, oh, it's absolutely pouring with rain. It's cold. And I know that I need to go and spend 45, 50 minutes running in the rain. But that's what I mean. Like, it's almost addictive because that if you don't do it, you're going to really hate yourself for it, and
Yes.
you're going to beat yourself up.
Yes.
But that if you just do that thing that you really don't want to do,
you feel so good.
you feel so good afterwards.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what you're describing with the gratitude
Yes.
thing. Like, I'm so grateful that I did this, and
Yes.
it's just kind of refreshing that.
100%. I think, and the worst thing is, it's not even that you're gonna feel bad that day. Is that good things compound, but so does bad things.
Yeah.
You feel bad about yourself today. That's gonna lead to the next thing. You feel like, you know what? Well, I didn't run yesterday. Then there's no harm in me not running today. And then one day turns to 3 days, 4 days, and then you've built a habit of not doing it, and then it's gone. It's done like this.
And then you start eating rubbish because
And you start eating rubbish because you're like, oh, yeah, I haven't done it. 100%. And it's just, and that compound effect is what get people very depressed and suicidal and this, that, and the other. But if bad things compound, so does good things. And the reality of it is, you don't have to be disciplined in everything. I certainly am not disciplined in every part of my life, but I'm very disciplined in business. For the last 2 years, I went solely hungry, 10 toes down into business, and I knew by doing that I'll sacrifice my health. And in the last 2 years, I've put on a lot of weight. I went from being about the same weight as you, probably are you about 90 kilos or something like that?
I wish.
You wish? A bit higher?
Last time I checked, I was about 110.
110. You don't look it. But I was obviously about your weight, 90, 95. And the last 2 years, I've gone from there to being 130, 135. But the thing about me is the same way like the transition of leaving the job to starting the business. I know it's going to be a rocky road, but then eventually I'm going to get it. I know the same thing like the weight. I'm going to focus on, because I realize I'm 34 years old right now. Having a kid, there's certain windows that you just have to put your head down and make it work. And I had that window in business and I put my head down. And I think I've done phenomenally well. And I'm just about to obviously get back onto the health because I feel like I kind of like secured the window. So I sacrificed my health, to get into business, because I realized that you can get in shape in 3 months or 6 months. It's about how heavy that you are. But sometimes in business, sometimes it takes you a bit more than 6 months to actually build a successful business. So I grasped the window. But again, I think because of me just not caring, I just didn't care that people would be like, oh, Evans, you've put on a little bit of weight now. Great. You know what else has put on weight? My bank account.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I just don't care. I think it makes me so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. No, it's so true though, isn't it? Like, with the, kind of consistency, discipline thing, it's and like you say, moving that focus, because like as you rightly point out, the majority of people are disciplined in some area, whether it's even whether it's getting up for work every day, that takes discipline, right?
For sure.
It's hard sometimes.
It's hard.
You like wake up and you're like, man, I can't be arsed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, I guess, how much of a role do you think social media plays in people seeing your story, like people seeing if they didn't know your backstory and they just saw you driving your Lamborghini down the road, like how much influence does that have on people's kind of perception of you? But also, like, do you feel like they could put you on a pedestal and be like, I could never be like Evans because he's a different breed to me?
For sure. I mean, even before I got my Lamborghini, I remember when I first moved to Canary Wharf, I was living right close to, I forgot what it is. There's a big hotel very close to the building I was living. Long story short, one day I saw a whole bus and there was just Arsenal footballers who obviously, came there. And one of them actually drove their car. They didn't come on the bus and drove the Lamborghini. And I was like, wow. Like, I looked up to the guy just like he's a king. Another guy in my building I saw driving a brand new Lamborghini Urus in the same building as me. I saw him in the gym a few days afterwards, and I was like, wow. Like, I never spoke to the guy, but I put him on a pedestal. When I did eventually start to speak to the guy, it's just a regular guy who just bought a vehicle. So if I used to put people on a pedestal because they used to have certain things that I wanted, I'm pretty sure some people put me on the pedestal. I can tell sometimes when certain people meet me. I was at an event 2 days ago with about 100 individuals, and the way that some people look at me, I can just tell they put me on the pedestal. But the reality of it is, I don't put myself on a pedestal, and you can tell by sometimes if you really watch me closely, you're gonna realize that I don't overdo it. I don't even wear jewelry. I can have a nice watch or chain, but I don't do that. I really try to relate with students. When I do my property events, I don't wear a suit. I wear similar to this. Jeans, trainers, and a t-shirt. Why? Because I try to relate to people. I feel like when you can relate to people, you can connect with them better. And I don't want anyone to put me on a pedestal because I promise you this, I don't think I'm necessarily better than anybody. At the same time, I don't think anyone is better than me. I think the difference with me and somebody who hasn't got the success that I have is that I have failed more than them. And that failure has now turned into what a lot of people call success. That's what I think. A lot of success is just a lot of failure that eventually just turns into success. Because I promise you, I've failed a lot more than the average person. I've done so many things that hasn't worked. Nobody knows about it because people only see the success, and they only want to see the success. When you fail in, you are almost invisible to the world. Most people don't even see you. You enter a room, no one knows that you're there. The minute you start to win, you're the center of everything. But for you to become the center of everything, you have to first be that guy that's invisible. You have to first be the guy who failed multiple times, and eventually just converts to success.
I think that's the most important message that anyone could ever hear, and it is the reason that I started this podcast, seeing my kids watching people on YouTube. And I think one of my kids turned around to me and said something that really kind of stuck with me. And it was like, I don't know who they were watching, but it was like, what do you want to be when you're older? And they were like, well, I'm going to be a millionaire. All right. How are you going to do that? Well, I'll just go on YouTube. It's easy, and it really struck me, like the perception that some people are given out is that this life is easily obtainable. And then what happens? People do look into it and realize it's not as easy as it looks, and then they don't start it, or they do start it and the first hurdle they encounter stops them, and then they stop. So that was like, for me, that was like a real eye-opener. And we talked earlier about why I started the podcast, and my thing is that I wanted to write a book, and the foundation of that book was exactly that. Like, how do we break down the success, really, like getting the success that you want, whatever success is, whether it's monetary, weight loss, whatever it is, basically comes down to hard work and discipline, and seeing something through. And like you said, having that kind of self-belief and confidence in your own abilities and in your own kind of work ethic to plow through stuff and get there. Because it's so easy, isn't it, for people to, look at you and go, he just does property. It's a piece of cake. I could do that. I'm going to do it now, But without your guidance, the chances are, if I just decided tomorrow I'm just going to go and start doing property, I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna come across hurdles really quickly.
For sure.
And if I don't know how to navigate those hurdles, I've probably got a bit of a problem, unless I've got a load of money that I'm willing to lose. So I think it's a really important message that, and I love what you said, that you just failed more times than others. Right? That's such an important message.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's basically. I mean, and the reality of it is, I didn't knew that's what was gonna happen. I just failed, and I was just like, well, I'm failing. I mean, there's no point to stop now. And one of my mentors that I listen to, his name is Eric Thomas. He says he said something one day on a really dark day. I was thinking like, man, I'm gonna give up this thing and just probably go back to my job. But he said if you're going through pain, or if you're going through a storm, it doesn't make sense to stop in the middle of the storm, because it's only gonna just remain stormy. If that is even a word, right? But he said if you continue going, eventually you're gonna get out of the storm and you're gonna see sun. He said one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people do when they're going through a storm is that they stop. And then what happens is they don't realize that it's a sentence. The remainder of your life gonna be stormy because you're actually still in the storm. So you might as well keep going. You might as well keep walking because eventually you're gonna get out of it. So when I was going through the storm, when I feel like the world was just sucking me, everything just wasn't really working. When I heard this, I'm like, you know what? It makes sense. I might as well keep putting one foot in front of the other until eventually something's gonna work, and that's exactly what happened. And I've come out of the storm. I've realized that I am just a big failure, just because I failed more than a lot of people. And I think if every failure, which is a massive part of my life, I'm actually writing a book called, The Ability to Edit Your Life, which should be published by next month. In fact, I've already wrote the book. But that book just basically just explains the fact that you just need to edit your life. So you can just stop wherever you are right now and find out why is my life not working? When you diagnose the problem, then you go just cut it off, start something else. But also, there might be something that's working in your life, and you go stop and you go find out why it's working. And when you find out why it's working, you pour fuel on it. You see, Albert Einstein defines insanity as doing the same thing over and over and over again, and expect a different result. And I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people, they know they're failing in life, but they never stop and question why they're failing. And as a result, they keep doing the things that makes them fail every day, and they hope to get a better life. It doesn't work that way. If you fail, it's okay, but you need to find out why you're failing. Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's the job that you have. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe your partner is super negative. See, if you don't know what the problem is, you can't fix it. And I think having the ability to edit your life and find out what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, I think has been a game changer for me. I think multiple times I've had to stop and think like, why is this not working, Evans? And when I find the root, go cut it off. It might be tough at the time, but in the long run, I know it's gonna be better. And I think if you have the ability to stop and edit your life, you can change wherever you are. Because human beings, we are not trees. We are not planted in one location. We have the ability to change. We have the ability to grow. We are the one species that's got the most unlimited amount of potential. Because if you're someone who's English speaking, if you move to France next year, you spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years in France, you will learn French. And after you live there, if you go to Spain, spend a few years there, guess what's going to happen? You're going to learn Spanish. But you won't unlearn the French. You won't unlearn the English. So you're going to be bilingual just by default. And it's the same thing like business. If you are failing in your job, guess what? You can quit this job and start something else. And it can work. But I think because we just don't edit our life, we keep failing over and over and over and over again. And then we're 75. And then we say, I missed the boat. Well, you don't have to miss the boat. You can stop today, find out what you're doing wrong, cut it off, and then the next 365 days can be completely different. I think a lot of people underestimate how powerful 6 months can be. 6 months can completely change the average person's life.
Yeah.
Talk about 5 years, it can be life-changing. It definitely has been for me.
Yeah, that's it's a massively important message for sure. And you're right, 6 months can be life-changing. I guess I'm really interested to kind of learn, you mentioned briefly earlier about the short period in which, getting into property kind of changed your life. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that? What led to you kind of actually kind of taking the plunge and going, right, I'm going to do this. And then how did you kind of, turn your life around in that short space of time?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as I said, I had enough social proof to know that property works. For my job, number one, for me and loads of these customers who were successful. Some of them had a good start, some of them didn't. When I started to really binge on property on YouTube, I saw loads of success people. And I was like, they can't all be actors. So I knew that this works. Then I started to really think about property. I think it's something that's always been there. It's something that's always been there while I've been alive. And even when I pass away, it's always going to be there. People will always need somewhere to stay. It's a business that's recession-proof. whatever happens with the economy, with innovation, it's always going to be useful. People will always need somewhere to stay. So I think I was completely sold on the longevity of this business. Number two, I was completely sold out on it works for an average person who hasn't got education, who didn't go to university, finished college. And I think what I really liked about property is the fact that I understood that if you got the knowledge that the people that are successful have, the playing field is level. It doesn't matter if you go on accents. It doesn't matter if you're dark in skin. It doesn't matter if you're young. It doesn't matter if you're old. You know, when it comes to renting a property, anybody can obviously rent a property. When it comes to buying a property, anybody can obviously buy it. So even if you have got the biggest hurdles that you think that you can't do, for example, you might feel like, you know what, I haven't got credit. There are lenders that's going to give you a mortgage, even if you got CCJ, which is the worst possible credit. Even if you're too young to buy a house, even if you're like 30 and 40, guess what happened? You can get someone to be a mortgage host. You can get someone to host the mortgage on your behalf. So even if you haven't got the age limit, or let's just say you haven't got the eligibility, for example, your credit. Most people's biggest barrier is I haven't got the money. That is actually one of the most easiest things. You see, when it comes to residential house, yes, the banks will like to know where the deposit has come from. When it comes to buying a property for an investment, guess what? They don't care where the money's come from. So a lot of the houses that I've bought, I raised the money. Someone transferred the money to me, and I've used that money to buy a house. They're not that fussed on where the money's come from. Now, I'm not saying to you there's no checks that's done, but it's very light checks. Whereas when you're buying a house, it's like, I need to know how much money you're making a job over a period of time, where the money's come from. So the rules are completely different to buying a residential house to buying a buy-to-let, right? So when I understood and when I got this knowledge, the playing field was leveled. I think for the first time in being in this country, I feel the playing field was leveled. Because now in property, the race, your accent, your nationality, your ethnicity, your age, doesn't matter. Anybody can obviously do this. So I think when I understood this, it was like a completely fresh pair of eyes, should I say, of the way that I saw things moving forward. And that's what really made me know that I can do this. Because a lot of things in life, as an African American in the UK, it's not leveled. Sometimes you go to a job, and I've witnessed this multiple times, doesn't matter how hard you work. It's very rare that you will become the CEO one day because of the nature of the business and stuff like that, and who you know and who likes you and all of those mitigating factors that restricts you from actually getting to the top. But I know in property, it's a level playing field. If you get the right knowledge and the right support, you grasp onto it, you can make this work. And anybody can do this. The same way you can learn to ride a bike, the same way you can learn to drive a car, the same way you can obviously learn to sprint, run, multitask while you're driving, you can learn about property. As long as you're willing to learn and be coachable, then it can work for you.
Even with, so you mentioned there, like somebody that's got no money, right? Let's say somebody that comes to you and says, Evans, I've got no savings. What's their first step to getting into property?
You see, the thing about property is this. You will need money in property if you don't have knowledge. When you do have knowledge, you are able to leverage people's savings to do your property business. And what do I mean by that? There are so many people that's got 10, 15, 20, 30,000 pounds in their accounts, and they ain't got a clue what to do with it. And because they ain't got a clue what to do with it, they don't do anything because they don't want to risk it. And there are also people who's got loads of equity sitting in their property. They bought a house years ago, they've been paying the mortgage, the house price has gone up, and the house is worth a lot more than what they originally bought it for. So they have like 30, 40, 50 grand sitting in the house. They don't even know what to do with it. So getting money is actually very simple in property, as long as you have got the knowledge. Most importantly, you've got the credibility, because no one's going to want to invest their life savings in you if they don't think you know what you're doing and what you're talking about. So step number one, if you're someone starting from scratch, and I've got loads of my students starting from scratch, is you got to be that person who's credible. You got to be that person who's investable. How can you do that? By knowing what to do. How do you get to know what to do? You need to get knowledge. It's the same way, like, how can you become a doctor if you don't go to university and get trained to become a doctor? It's the exact same way like property. I knew this. I never wanted to invest money to learn about property. I did it because that was the last option. After me trying for all of this time and I failed badly, I realized the only way I'm going to actually become successful in this, I need to learn this. So I had to beg, borrow, and steal to get trained. Right? And because of doing that, it got me on another level. And I've got loads of students. I know my students named Manfred from Leicester. You know, he's got a very tough start. You know, he's been in and out of prison multiple times. I met him living in a shared accommodation. And I do some virtual events up and down the country. I don't know how he stumbled across my link, but he came onto the call. And he was just very hungry. And I'm like, bro, if you're hungry, I can help you. You're going to have to invest, number one. It was only 1.5K into coming down to learn from me, right, in a bootcamp. And he was like, bro, I can't even afford my room rent this month. It was only about a few £100. And I was like, listen, I had a Range Rover at the time. I'm like, if I give you this Range Rover now worth £60,000 and I ask you to pay me £5,000, but you got to give it to me in the next 48 hours, what will you do? You know what he told me? I'll find the money.
Yeah.
And what he proved to me is that the value of the car far exceeded the cost of the barrier to entry of getting the vehicle. And I told him, listen, the same way you can find $5,000 to buy this depreciating vehicle, this liability, the same way you can find 1.5K to get the knowledge that I'm going to give you. Because little do you know, the knowledge that I have is what allowed me to buy the Range Rover. So if you get this knowledge, not only can you buy a Range Rover, you can build, you know, anything. So if you want this bike, you can find 1.5. If you can find 5K, you can find 1.5. I mean, you know what, you're right, you know. He made a few phone calls. Actually, his landlord was the one who borrowed him the money. And he came down to the training. And I told him about how he can obviously rent properties from landlords or agents and re-rent it out for higher rent. It's something called the HMO strategy, House of Multiple Occupation. He got hooked onto this. Fast forward 10 months now, he has 9 properties. Jeez. Because he raised the money to get the education, that was a habit. I say how you do anything is how you do everything. So guess what happened? Every single property that he found someone to put the money in to fund the property deal. And he's now obviously built a portfolio. So the reality of it is anybody who really wants anything bad enough, they'll find a way.
Yeah.
I think desire is the starting point to success. If somebody wants something bad enough, nothing will stop them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And it's interesting because you reminded me of a story that I heard. Somebody told me that, like, you know, it's similar thing. You know, if you had to raise £1 million in 12 months because your family's life depended on it, you're going to do it.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Nothing's going to stop you, is it? Nothing's going to stop you. So, like, why can't you do it when, you know, your family's life aren't depending on it?
Right.
You know, if you go into the same mindset, and it's a similar thing with the Range Rover story, people will find a way.
They'll find a way. Because
it's like they've got no choice to.
Yeah. As long as the value is greater than the cost is a no-brainer. You know, just about showing people the value. Because a lot of people think like, oh, I want to do property, but I don't really know. But when I really show them what it's done for my life, they're like, hold on a minute, I can do the same thing for my life. Because yes, your family is not being held at gunpoint. But they are. If you can't bring them on a holiday, if you can't, you know, I'll be honest with you. One of my biggest motivations when I got started is I had a very good-looking partner. And for 2 years, I've been telling her that we're going to do something. And at the time, I was living in a parent's house in a small single room. It's very good looking, very good woman. And I was saying to her that one day we're going to do this, one day we're going to do that. And 2 years, nothing happened. And maybe you might be able to relate. When you tell someone something over and over and over again, it doesn't really happen. It tends to lose a little bit of credibility. So I came to the conclusion, I'm like, you know what? She's a very good looking, you know, girl, very lucky. And I was just like, how many other men would like to date her? I'm like, there's probably loads of other men, right? How many of those men can probably offer a bit more than me? Loads of other men. And I'm like, yes, she may love me, but at some point, love is not enough sometimes. And I'm just like, if she obviously was to go on a date, if a guy was able to fly her out and do something nice that I can't do, should I really be upset or not? No, because I had 2 years to do this and I couldn't do it. So one of my motivations was like, you know what, I got to level up myself, because if I don't, somebody else might stand a chance. So I think, if someone give you a year to raise £1,000,000 or your family's gonna die, you would, the same way you would find it. But you don't need someone to hold your family at hostage for you to do whatever you have to do to get to where you have to get. Because if you don't do it, what's gonna happen is you're gonna lose a lot of things around you, because money makes a lot of things better.
Yeah, it's that reality check, isn't
Yes.
it? I guess when you actually step back and think, what are the consequences of me not doing this?
Yes,
And too many people, I guess, don't think about that.
for sure.
They think, if I do this, it could really improve my life. But my life's not that bad. It's quite easy. Why would I? And I guess it's flipping that thought to, what are the consequences of me not doing this?
For sure.
I'm going to be pissed off with myself.
Yeah.
Because I've got had all these opportunities to change my life and I didn't take them, etc. So yeah, it's a really cool way to look at things.
Yeah, 100%.
I've got a few questions, quick fire type questions to ask you, if that's all right. If you could put your kind of journey and the success of your journey down to 3 things, what would those 3 things be, do you think?
One would be personal development. Personal development has made me a different person. I don't read physical books, but I've listened to a lot of audiobooks. I've invested in mentors, loads of different mentors. I've traveled up and down, the country, the world, LA, Rotterdam, Spain, to learn from people. So definitely personal development. Number 2, I would say having a mentor. I think everything is achievable when you've got someone who's achieved it before, holding your hands, 100%. But that's not enough. Knowledge is not power. It's knowledge applied that's power. The third thing I would say is massive action. So I think when you go to personal development, you're going to see life a lot differently. A lot differently. When I was broke, I saw the cost of everything. Everything that you told me, the first thing I saw was the price. I'm like, it's too much. But now I'm no longer broke. I see the value in anything. Anything that you tell me, forget it. I want to see what I'm going to get in return. How is that going to help me? So, number 1, the mindset with the personal development. Number 2, having somebody who's done it to hold you on is a cheat code to success. And number 3 is you got to take the action. You got to implement. And I think the higher the sting, the more skin you have in the game, the more likely you are to take action. So I think if you combine those 3 things, you've got a pretty good chance of becoming successful.
Yeah, I think that's really key, is what you mentioned about seeing the value, not seeing it as a cost, but
sure.
seeing it as an investment. Because I feel like, again, I've been guilty of this myself, seeing something as a cost. Learning to drive costs money, but the investment is the kind of freedom it gives you.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same thing to what you're describing. Investing in knowledge, investing in somebody that's going to stand by your side and get you to where you need to be, is the kind of investment that is going to, along with the action, obviously, but it's going to bring you lots of great stuff in the future. So yeah, really important. If you could change anything about your journey, would you, and why?
If I could change anything in my journey, would I? I don't know if I would change anything, but I think if I did change anything, I remember coming to this country in August 2013. If I'm not mistaken, it was 20th of August 2013. And I landed at Gatwick. I mean, the only thing I probably would change is that I wish someone met me at the airport and told me all of those jobs, all of those get-rich-quick scams not scams, but things that you did to make money, stop doing it and just focus on property. I think if someone told me that and they showed me how I could do it, I think I would have been a lot further than I am right now. So I think that's really the only thing I probably would have changed. But again, on the flip side, I think everything happens sometimes at the right time. So maybe I needed to fail all of the things that I failed in to really appreciate this industry that I'm in now. I think sometimes if you haven't got something to compare it to, you don't really see the value of it. So if I had to change anything, probably would be property. But in hindsight, I think it's meant to turn out the way that it's turned out.
Yeah. So would have perhaps started a bit earlier, but then do you learn from the mistakes that you made in that period before property? You know, how much of those mistakes that you've made in those previous years, you know, how much have they influenced what you do now? You know, I guess is the thing, isn't it? So yeah, it's a tricky one. It's funny actually because the majority of people that I speak to say the same thing. They're like, I just wish I started it earlier. You know, you took the step. What's next for you?
What's next for me? I think for the very first time in my life, for the last 2 to 3 years, I feel I'm just on I'm on God's mission. You know, I'm very religious. He's a massive part of me being where I am today, and he wants me to do what I'm doing now. You know, especially on the coaching side, because you know I'm changing lives. You know, and I'm every single time I'm teaching property, I mention God, and I think he wants me to really expand this. So what's next is I'm really honing in on this. I'm really obviously taking my teachings not only in property, but obviously just started off my motivational speaking, because I believe my speaking can help people who maybe are not into property, but they need to hear my voice. I want to take my teachings into sales teaching. I just think there's a lot more lives that I can touch, definitely within property, but also out of property as well. So I want to obviously going to go international. I want to go to prisons. I want to go to schools and really teach and train people that there is more to life. I want to train them that where you start is not necessarily where you're going to finish. That's more of my message. Property is the vehicle that I've used to get there, but I think my teachings can also help people to do other things in life. So definitely want to put some energy on going out there and inspiring people.
Yeah, amazing. How can people learn more about you and get in touch with you if they want to?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my name is Evans Willie. It's my social handles for most of channels other than Instagram. Instagram is Evans J Willie, and you can obviously just follow me on there. It's Evans Willie on LinkedIn. It's Evans Willie on YouTube. It's Evans Willie on TikTok. So yeah, you can obviously just follow me, drop me a DM. I'm very active. I don't ignore people. So if someone DMs me, I normally reply to them very, very quickly. So they can reach out to me and connect, and we can see how we can work together.
Cool. It's been amazing having you on, and I wish you all the best with your the motivational side of things, because I think that I don't say this to everyone, but I think this has been one of the most inspiring conversations I've had.
Thank you.
Just your brutal honesty on how you've kind of got through things and the troubles that you've encountered on the way through, how you kind of shaped your kind of mindset to becoming the person that you are today, and how you've kind of dedicated your life to helping others as well. I think it's amazing. I certainly think that you'd be a very successful motivational speaker. So
Thank you.
So that is something that I hope people kind of take from it, and I hope that you can do some more of that sort of stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming along. And yeah, hopefully we'll stay in touch. And
thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me on your on your channel, on your podcast. It means a lot. And the funny that you say that is multiple people have told me that, Evans, I think you should get into motivational speaking.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think there has to be some truth to that. So definitely, I plan to do that. So I appreciate you having me on your channel to let your viewers hear my voice. So it means a lot to me. Thank you for having me.
Yo, check it out. It's the Grind Diaries podcast where we share all our hustling stories. Yeah, from the struggles to the grind, we spill it on the mic. So sit back, relax, and let us take you for a ride. The world which we become reality.